everybody. In the past week, I've received no less than 5 messages from people asking me, what do I think of such and such corset, or this corset maker, or that corset maker, and I kind of felt compelled to do a video on it just so that nobody has any misconceptions. First of all, I have no problem with people who buy corsets instead of making them. I'm not out to put corset makers out of business or one-up them in any way. I actually do recommend that before you start making corsets, you buy at least one corset, even if it's a simple off-the-rack corset. When you wear that, you will be able to figure out where your problem areas are, what fits well on you, what you want in a corset, what you don't want in a corset, what styles might be uncomfortable for you, whether it's a long line or a short waist cincher, anything along those lines. So buying a corset as your first waist training corset is actually a good thing, because then you can incorporate the things you like into the corsets that you eventually make, if and when you decide to make them. So please don't be scared about telling me that you want to buy a corset or that you already did buy a corset instead of making one. I really have no qualms against it. If I had the funds to do so, I would just buy professionally made custom corsets all the time. So if you watch my videos regularly, you know that I'm a student, I work in a laboratory. I'm not going to go into details about my income or anything like that because that's personal, but right now I'm just focused on, the basics, paying for rent and utilities and food, just like any other person. And, in undergrad, I actually was able to survive on $5 a week for food. It was bland, it was gross, I became anemic after a while. But I managed to make it work. And right now, I'm not in that situation anymore. I'm quite comfortable, but I'm simply not wealthy enough to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on one corset. It just kind of makes sense for me that if I had, say, $300 to spend, I would spend it on materials to make corsets as opposed to just ordering one corset. And that is just what works for me. I'm not saying that everybody should do it. That's just my personal experience. So I've actually had to defend myself at times, why do I make my own corsets specifically? So I have worked everything out with a couple of equations for you. So, I'm a science person. I love math. So here we go.
So let's say I have $400. With $400, I could buy a professionally made corset, but I would only be able to buy one, and it would obviously be custom fit. So that is one perk. I could buy an off-the-rack corset, and actually with $400 I could afford to buy 2 or 3, but they would not be a custom fit. Or I could make a homemade corset, and with $400 I could buy the materials to make up to 8 corsets if they were plain, maybe 5 or 6 corsets if they were more decorative. But I would make sure that they were custom fit, because when I'm making a corset myself, I can make as many mock-ups as I need. Now, in terms of time, a professional custom fit corset you could receive maybe 6 to 8 weeks after making the order, but this is extremely optimistic. Many corset makers take between 3 and 6 months to finish your corset. With an off-the-rack corset, you could receive it immediately if you had a store nearby that sells them. But in most situations, if you're ordering it online, let's say you would take about 2 weeks to receive it. If you were making a corset yourself, wouldn't this take up all of your time? Not in my case. After I finish the drafting to make the pattern that fits me perfectly, it takes me maybe 25 hours to make a corset from start to finish. So let's say I spread out the 25 hours over 1 week, sewing after work and on weekends. There are 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week, so this equals 168 hours in a week. So really, I would only be spending less than 15% of my time dedicated to sewing these corsets. So, dedicating 15% of my life to making these corsets over a couple of months, I can make up to 8 fairly plain, custom-made corsets in 8 weeks, the same amount of time it takes to receive one custom corset from the professional. Are there bonuses to this? Of course. First of all, you have a sense of accomplishment because, hey, you made it yourself. Also, there are no surprises from the creative liberties taken by the corseteer. Some people like these creative liberties, but other particular people, such as myself, do not. So what are the drawbacks? Obviously, TV time. You cannot veg or watch TV in the evenings if you're dedicating 3 hours a day to making your corsets. So some of you might be asking me, why haven't I made this many corsets since I started making videos? Well, it's sort of a catch-22, because making corsets would cut into my time spent making YouTube videos for you guys in the first place. Now, I just want to state again, this is just what works for me. There are people out there who just don't have the time to even dedicate 2% of their lives to sewing, never mind 15%. Some people work 16-hour days. To those people, I commend you for your hard work. Some people hate sewing. Some people don't think they have enough creative ability to make corsets. And some people are just simply blessed enough that they have the funds to buy as many corsets as they please. As I said before, if I had the funds, I would definitely buy corsets instead of making them.
I will post a video in the next couple of weeks or so on, what to look for in a corset if you're going to, go to a store and buy an off-the-rack corset. I will go into the details about that in a later video, but just for right now, if at all possible, you should, buy a corset in a store where you can try it on beforehand, see how it feels. If it's uncomfortable on your rib cage or your hips, as soon as you put it on in the store, then it's likely not going to get any more comfortable if you take it home and wear it for a few weeks. Because that's when you're dealing with the discomfort around the bones of your body, not just squishing your organs. When you're in the change room, don't be afraid to inspect the corset carefully and, bend it around and yank on the fabric to make sure that it's strong and it doesn't stretch. Because, like these corsets, they're specifically supposed to be made to take hundreds of pounds of pressure over many hours at a time and, last you at least a year, if not more. So, don't be afraid to abuse it. They're supposed to be really hardy, so it can take a little bit of yanking around. For those of you who are buying your corsets online, which is probably 80% of the cases, just be super careful. Read everything on the website that you can about how they make their corsets, because even if they say that they use steel boning or they have a strong core layer, you have no idea if when you actually receive the corset, if the grommets are going to pop off, or if the panels are sewn together in a very secure way, or if the fabric would stretch over time. These are all things that you just kind of have to learn through experience. There's no way that I can actually tell you from a glance on a website, if a certain corset is good or not for waist training. So I'm really sorry about that, but there's nothing I or anybody can do. Personally, I would absolutely love to do reviews for all of you. I know Phoenix has some reviews on several corsets from Leatherotics and Orchard Corset. I know a few other people have reviews on YouTube as well. I have a corset from Leatherotics and also from Timeless Trends, so I can do a review for you guys on those corsets if you find it useful. I'm not going to sugarcoat them at all. I bought them with my own hard-earned money. I did not receive them as free samples or anything like that, so I will tell the truth. And I would absolutely love to do this with other corsets as well. I would season them properly and I would wear them for a month to see how it holds up, and I would even, if I found it necessary, I would do a little bit of dissecting of the corset and really figure out how many layers do they use. Do they really use steel boning? Is there a waist tape there? I would love to do those really thorough reviews for you guys so you know exactly what you're buying. But I just I just can't right now. I'm sorry. I go onto those online websites just as much as anybody else, just as any corset loving girl would, and I drool at those corsets. I have a secret little wish list in the back of my mind. But I just if I had the funds, I would do it. I really would. But right now, I can't. Perhaps I can do this in the future, but not right now. And I'm not trying to ask you guys for money or anything. I know there are people on YouTube who have like donation funds. I'm really hesitant to set something like that up because there's so many people who aren't worrying about corsets right now. They're just struggling to live. They're struggling to feed themselves and feed their children. So I'm not going to go and ask for money just for clothing or corsets. So everyone, you're still absolutely welcome to message me or leave comments and ask me what do I think of this corset, what do I recommend, but I can't say yes or no to any particular corset. I hope you guys understand, and I hope I haven't disappointed you. I will post a video next week on how to attach binding to your corset, and if you don't want to buy your own bias tape, I'll teach you guys how to make your bias tape as well. So until next time, I hope you guys have a very excellent weekend. Bye.